Alright, so this is the Hobo Stove construction video. It might seem like it shouldn't take very long to make a video about how to make a hobo stove, since all it is just a can with some holes cut in the top, holes cut in the bottom. Last time we did it with a can opener. In this case, we're going to try to make one that is a little bit more sturdy, more versatile, can do a bit more things with it. And actually, we're going to make two different hobo stoves with really very different designs. One will be the basic standard design, and then one will be a modified design, which basically it'll work well with the kit that I have, and that I'm going to show you how to make. So it's going to fit right into, like, you can pack it away with your gasifier. You can use it in combination with your gasifier. You can use them as two separate stoves. And in order to do that, we have to construct it in a particular way. And there's going to be actually a couple of different options when we do that. So what we're going to need, if you remember in the last video, we used just sort of a regular sized can of beans. And in that case, what happened was it just sort of smothered because there just wasn't enough air in there. The fire wasn't able to breathe. So in this case, what we want is we want a bigger can. And what you want to look for, the size that's going to fit right into our kit, is a 28-ounce can of, you know, whatever you can get. There's all kinds of things that come in this size. I know the first time I went shopping for cans, I was a little confused about how the sizes worked. I didn't realize that there are really only a few sizes of cans. And I was trying to figure, like here, for example, this is a progressive soup can. We're going to be using that in the later videos. So this is a 20-ounce can. So when we talk about ounces of the can sizes, you can see that that one sort of fits in there, so you can see the difference. And that you might find, and this one actually says 19 ounces. It's not 20 ounces, but we call this a 20-ounce can. In this case, we have one that actually says 30 ounces, but it's going to be the same size as other things that come in sizes of 28 ounces. So we're all referring to about the same sizes of cans. If you happen to find some product that is, you know, like 32 ounces, that's the next size up. So it's a completely different thing. But what you can do when you're comparing can sizes at the store is just find something that, if you get confused about it, find something that is 28 ounces and then compare it to the other sizes, and you'll find that they are the same can. There's a standard sizes of cans. So just go ahead and do that. And, you know, take the contents out, do whatever you're going to, you know, eat it, store it, whatever. Take the top off, and then we're going to just take the bottom off for two. And I think I started the video without my can opener, because I'll be right back. Alright, so we'll just quickly take the bottom off of this can as well. Oh wait, actually, I'm going to use a different can, because I didn't mean to do that. So here's another example of a can that you might use. I'm going to save that can for something else. So I'm going to take this can and leave it as is, just as is. And what we're going to do is drill holes in the top and in the bottom. So what we can do is, whoops, grab that. So what you want to find are these step bits, like this. This is a little kit that I found at Harbor Freight, and they look like this, Drill Master, and they were really, really cheap. And let me show you that up close. So how the way these things work, if you've never seen them before, is that they allow you to drill in with a fine point, but then gradually it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, so that you can work up to a larger size hole. Right? So normally, you know, if you're drilling something, you want to get the small bit just to make your pilot hole, and then you keep on using your bigger bits. So this allows you to do it all at once. It literally just goes as steps. So the one we're going to use is this one here. You can find these, I mean, in other places like Home Depot, but this Home Depot says a really nice one it's like 20 bucks, and it's unnecessary for something like this, especially if it's something that you're not really going to use that often. So if you have a Harbor Freight near you, find that. Otherwise, I think you'd be better off just ordering them online rather than buy some $15 thing at Home Depot. So, so these are just regular drill bits. and we're going to start drilling holes. So you're going to have a question of how big are the holes that you need. And while I'm talking, I'm just going to cut the label off. So the idea in a hobo stove is you want to get as much airflow as you can. Just get that off. So you're going to want a row of holes through into the bottom and a row of holes in the top. It's really very simple. It's just as simple as you saw me do it in the basic concept video. So we'll just start someplace, and you're going to have a question of how many holes and how big of the holes do you really need. And that's something you can experiment with. You got to remember that these are just basically free cans, right? So as long as you got this and you have the time to spend, spend a couple minutes just drilling some holes in there in different patterns to see which one works best for your purposes. And the thing is, you might have a different result than me or anybody else who's making videos online. So you might as well experiment for yourself. And if you find that you are doing something completely different and getting way different results, or maybe even feel like you get better results, you're welcome to go for it. I'm also just trying to teach you that that there are principles behind that. So as long as you're like following some scientific principles, then you can kind of guide yourself rather than just simply following a recipe. In this one, I'm basically going to give you the standard recipe. So I'm going to start with drilling some holes in the top. Let's pause that while this. No, that's okay. They're going back by pretty fast. ATVs out here. Often happens when you're wilderness camping. So I'm going to go as close to the top as possible. So like way up here. I'm not going to go down here. I'm not going to go, somewhere else. I'm going to go really close to the top, but not so close to the top that I cut off the reinforcement ring. Definitely don't do that, and probably just leave just a little bit under there as well. I'm probably going to go to just about the widest setting, which in this case is 3/4 inches, and maybe like 5/8 or 11/16. Keep them uniform, yeah. And then what we want to happen is, let's see, do I want to show you that? I'll get to that in a moment. So basically, I'm going to first turn the camera down so you can watch me. So, hold it tight. And in this case, there's grooves. Sometimes there's going to be like all flat area, so you're really going to have to like hold it pretty tight in the one area. And you might even have to use a smaller bit, one of the sharper bits, just to get your first hole in there. Then we'll just go. So we're just going to move around. You got to find it there. Keep it in place. Okay, is that about what I want? It's a hole like that, and that's a good size. That's right about where I wanted it. Let's see, how far did I go in there? In this case, I got to, what does it say? Can't even read what it says. Oh, it says, wait, no, 9/16. I want to get to 5/8. That's how I just want to know the number. Okay, so I'm up to 5/8. So I'm using a 5/8 hole. So you can feel free to experiment with smaller sizes, more holes, smaller sizes, less holes, smaller sizes, bigger sizes, whatever you want to do. And just try different ones. And then you're going to have these little burrs that you're going to have to dig out of there at some point. So in that case, I'll just demonstrate what I'm going to do. So you can see it. You just grab those burrs and pull them out. This one's going to require some twisting. And then in addition to that, it would be good if you had, at the very least, sandpaper. But just something like this. This is like a sanding stone, basically. A bit that's a sanding stone. And then that's real handy just for getting rid of extra burrs. feel no need to be real exact about it or anything. But you know, you might want to, if you aesthetics are important to you, if you want to give it as a gift, then you know you want to be as neat as you can. There's one that won't go away. Alright, so I'm just going to continue that process going around the top rim. And then, after I do that, we're going to discuss one other option. Oh, by the way, thought it would be good to show you how to a little bit of geometry of cutting your holes, including a trick that I learned a long time ago when I was a kid that a lot of people don't really know. I happen to be pretty good at geometry. Obviously, if you wanted to do like 8 holes, right? This is probably the easiest for most of you, but I'm going to show you how to do 6 holes. Think about 8 holes, since it's evenly divisible by 2 and 2, then all you have to do is just like go straight across from each other and then make a cross shape. And then once you've made your cross shape, then you can go in between the one that's here and to go over there. In fact, I'll just even show it just right on here. If you want to do that, you can just go like that, and then you go halfway in between those. So one there, and then one there, and then you can go here, halfway between that. And now you have a pattern of even 8, right? So let's say you wanted to do 6. So I'm going to show you a trick for this. You can go across, then you have to have a way to divide this evenly into 3 parts. So how do you do that? Well, personally, I just eyeball it. I've been doing this all my life. Most people I have found don't really have that kind of a privileged math background. So here's a trick I learned for how to divide something in 3 really easily. What you do is just take this edge and fold it over so that this angle right here is equal to this angle right here. And then if you do it right, you'll be able to fold it over so that these are exactly even like that. And you'll get that kind of angle. Now if you mess it up, if your eyeball's not that great, say that you guessed that it was over here, and then you folded it over, and then you can see, oh, that's way too much, so I have to just make the adjustment. So you just gradually go over until whenever you fold it over, then it's even, like that. And for this purpose, this doesn't have to be really neat, but again, like if you wanted to make it as a gift or something like that, then it'd be good to be able to get them pretty even. So I like having 6 holes, so I'm going to use this number. So then what I'll do is that, you know, after I mark the center, and this is also a good eyeball kind of thing, halfway between there, halfway between there, halfway in all directions. So I could still just like do that and then make sure I'm going halfway in every direction and just keep doing that. So it seems like that is about the center. Still a little bit off though, because of the warpage. So that's my center. And then I'm going to go starting from this line that I've already made, just stick it at the center, and then here's the next one, and then if I go to here, so you're just basically making yourself a protractor, and then if you did it right, then it should come out. Okay, now I didn't, and I know why. It's because you gotta be real careful about where you're drawing the line. So it's got to be a little more exact. And where do you think the center is too? So it wasn't exactly a point right there. Pull it back. So that one seems like it's about right. So the problem was in this one. Aha! I drew it way over too far. So it's got to be much closer to this line right here. That should do it. So I'm still a little wrong. But you can see, you can use this to adjust your protractor. Like if you're drawing out the lines and it's still not coming out right, then you know that you did something wrong. In fact, you can just go by this and figure, okay, it must really be like over here. This one must be over here, and that will guarantee that my angles were all even. It's most likely that I was doing this, and then just because it's just the unevenness of the napkins. If you use like a regular piece of paper that isn't so thick and fluffy, you'll probably be able to get a much more even edge, especially if you push down the seams. I'm a little confused by that. Maybe I didn't go exactly half. Maybe it wasn't the center. Maybe my center, I bet my center is off. That's probably what it is. Or you can actually get a protractor if you own a protractor. You can grab it and use this and draw 60 degrees. Something's still really wrong about this. Okay. This side worked out perfectly. Okay, so I'm going to use this side because it just worked out. I don't have so many funny lines. So now I can just put this up here. I could put this up here, and I could hold it there and then use it to mark my lines. So I'll just hold it there, and there's going to need to be one here. I'll just mark the top, and another one right there. Same on the other side. And there. And then I'll do the same thing on the bottom when I get around to that part. So now I will continue to drill these holes. Alright, so while I'm at it, here's another hole drilling tip. So I know I need to put one right here, and these are going to have it's going to have a tendency to want to slip and wander around. So long as you're wearing gloves, here's what you could do. Just line up, this is where, let me mark the hole so you can see what I'm doing. Right here. And then I could just put my thumb right there with gloves on it. And I can hold my two fingers on the two sides of the hole so that it'll be able to slip right down in there. And just make sure you're wearing gloves when you do this. And that'll enable you to hold it. You want to brace it down onto something, and then I'm also bracing it on my knee as well. Spin it. And yeah, that one went farther than I wanted it to. Yep, that was a little bigger than I wanted. It's alright. So I'm just going to continue with the other ones now. Alright, so we've got a completed Hobo Stove that can serve us really well, actually. And so we got a row of holes in the top, 6 holes using the pattern I showed you, as well as a pattern on the bottom, and solid bottom. So we'll just be able to sit it right on wherever we need it, load it up, and light it down here or up here, maybe even both places, whichever way is going to work for you in the weather conditions. This is a very versatile stove that will help you out in all kinds of conditions, especially when you might be forced to use just like twigs and stuff. And I actually was the other day because I had run out of pellets, and I was forced to use not only to use twigs, but to actually collect wet twigs and figure out how to use them. And it was a challenge, and using it with my gas fire stove actually worked really, really well, and I discovered a couple new ways to use it that I had never even tried before. So before I go any further, safety tips. I should have done this at the beginning, and I'm going to do it now. Make sure when you're doing some kind of drilling, safety glasses, burrs can just fly around. Make sure you're wearing gloves, as I was showing you this. And also, with the method I showed you, that was mostly a tip for people if you already know what you're doing, basically. And if you're new to this, then I don't advise that you try this method, the one that I showed you with putting your fingers down in there. Because what can happen, and it actually did happen to me, and I'm okay with it, but it might be very alarming if you're just trying this. So I'm telling you this now. Once you start drilling the hole, it can actually dig in there, and you have to be aware enough to move your fingers out of the way. You know, you shouldn't have your fingers in the way in the beginning, but if they happen to be there, it can get caught up in your gloves. And what will happen is that these burrs that's what's going to stick in your gloves and sort of tear your glove apart. So it didn't happen that badly for me just now, but it was enough to you know, maybe think I got to remind you, wear your glasses and make sure that only do you know, use that tip only if you really have a lot of experience with this. Yeah, and then if that case, if you are a beginner, you want to just basically drill a pilot hole with something, a sharper bit. This is a sharp bit that might work for you, one of these. And what is that if you down to? That's probably like, that's not an eighth, but it's not a quarter, probably like a 3/8. So it's small enough that you can get a good sharp piercing. Maybe even like poke it with a nail first. That's like just hammer a nail into there, pull it out so you got a little hole to start with so that it's not like wandering all over the place. All right, so do that first, and then this one will go in much more easily. So continuing with the video, we've got I'm going to take these off now because I think I'm done with the drilling part. So we got this hobo stove, and let me just set this back down a little bit anyway. So we got this one, and I basically already showed you how to use it, but we're going to go through and actually light some things up and show you some of the differences in how this one works and some of the other options that you didn't quite have in the other ones. There's also one other thing that we're going to do, which is oh, we got to put our little stakes up on top, our little skewers. So I've got those, and we'll cut those apart for you to use. And in fact, let's do that right now. I'm just going to pull it out. Grab some skewers at the store. These are something like $2 on sale. I think they usually run maybe $3.50, and really good for this purpose. You can also just use some like galvanized wire or something. Make sure you burn off the zinc. This is a little bit poisonous. And that's generally true for all these cans, by the way, as I'm doing this. There's a couple different cans that you might find, and one of them is just your standard sort of silvered lining. It might be a little bit yellowy, goldish looking, and bronzed maybe. I'm not even sure what it is. But let's see, get this other one off. You also might have a white lining, which is you find inside bean cans usually, but not always. In fact, I got a can that I'm going to show you in just a moment that has the inside is lined with it's like white paint, and then you have another one which is galvanized, which you'll be able to recognize because it's kind of a silvery checkered pattern that you find on galvanized steel, so sort of a zinc coating. In any one of these cases, there are differences in the chemicals in them and what happens when you burn. In every case, you should just make it a general rule that before you actually use it and try to stick food directly over this, you should just like give it a good burn through. And I mean, in the demonstrations here, just we're going to do some test burns in here, but before like a real use, just go ahead and just give it a good burn through before you do any serious cooking with it, so you don't get strange chemicals in your food, because sometimes you just don't know what kind of chemicals in here. I think this is probably the most safe, but it's still probably got like what am I thinking of? The word I'm blanking on it, but the plastic coating that's not very good for you is probably on these kinds of things, and probably on all of them too. And they're definitely on aluminum cans, and aluminum cans, they're going to leach aluminum into your food as well. That's definitely well proven. And okay, so we got this one. let's make some skewers that we can set on top. So I guess I was saying that you can use like galvanized steel wire. Do I have any like just laying around here? I think I do. Here's something I made with that. I happen to have a big roll. If you don't have a big roll, then don't even bother, but like a coat hanger as well. And you can put those on here, and the difficulty with those is if you were to make something out of that, then what's going to happen is that it'll roll. Oh, you're not seeing this. Yeah, if it's round, then it's going to have a tendency to roll off. You might be able to like bend it or something so that it doesn't want to roll off. And you might even, now that I think about it, consider doing that for a pot hanger. I mean a pot stand, and that might actually work really well. That was the first time I thought of that, and so I haven't been through my thought process of what else you could do with that. But that's actually good. Limitation might be that it doesn't fit into the kit as easily. But now that I think about it, it might fit in there really, really easily. So that might be good. These things wear really, really well. I think they're stainless steel. Are they? Do they say? It doesn't say on here whether they're stainless or not. But they're not stainless because they do get kind of rusty. But this one is going to get really, really rusty. It's soft and stuff. So this is better, but it does cost you some money. So either way, whatever you got, coat hanger or something, this is probably a really good method to use, and it will probably work with some of the methods I'm going to show you that are going to come up in the third one of these videos after the gas fire for adding extra options to the kit. So for these, turning them into things, you can use this end. We're going to actually use both. We're going to make a set like this, and then I'm going to make another set without this end, and I'm going to make a guess because there's something in particular I want to do with it. Yeah, that'll work. Okay, so I'm going to cut them about right there. I'm going to mark it. There's some things that I'm showing you that I've never done before. They just seem like a really good idea. So we're going to do a little bit like a prototype trial in the third video with some extra kit stuff. So I'm going to do to cut these off. It's been a while since I've done this, so it might not work exactly as I remember. So I'm just going to give it a little score, basically. Not a score, but crease, because I'm not going to be able to cut straight through this. But if I do that and then do some bending, it will. And I definitely want gloves for this because it hurts my hand. There we go. I can also get my get that grinder. Okay, so we got basically two sets. I'm going to use these for now. I'm going to save these for the extra experimental session. That's pretty good edge. I don't feel like I need to grind that one down. That one maybe be good to grind down. I'm not going to do it right now. I'm going to do that on the video. So these are simple enough. You just set those on there like that. Set your pot, big pot. It's interesting that it's slipping. I think the reason it's slipping is because both of these are brand new. It's like in just a very short amount of time they're going to start getting all a little bit weathered, and they're not going to slip like that anymore. But if you do have that issue, then just reorient it. So that'll be fine. And this is also will enable to use smaller pots like that. Other ways you can do these like that, kind of, not real well, but it can be done. And that reminds me some other things that we weren't able to do when we had the smaller pot, and I'll just use this little Progresso as an example. Remember in the last one we basically put the pot right on top of there, and then it was kind of smothering, right? Well, part of the issue is that we're basically stopping. The heat wants to go up, and we were just stopping it, and then forcing it to go out the holes. So that creates a lot of turbulence inside, and it totally messes with the flame. So that was an additional issue that I didn't really bring up. But it still comes up in any one of these wood stoves that you use. It can also come up in one of these, like I have some cooking methods where I use a whole pan, and of course most people who aren't using backpacking pots have a larger pot. So of course you could just stick it right on top of there like that. But be aware that you're interfering with the flow. That's one reason why you want to have these holes as high as you can. But even so, you're basically stopping the flow and forcing it to come out of some place where it wasn't naturally going to go in the first place. So you could have more smoke issues just because of that. So this does help a little bit. It gives you an extra little bit for it to come out the top. But if you have problems where, and it's really easy to tell if you have this problem, if you have problems of, if you got too large a pot and you're interfering with the flow of the thermodynamic flow there, where the fire wants to go, basically, you just pick the pot up there, and if you see that your fire goes wild, and it's really funny to see, it's like you're looking at it and going like, oh my god, my fire just completely went out, what's going on? The wet wood or something like that, and then you pull it off and then you suddenly introduced air, you gave it some place where it could flow, all the air flowed into there, and it's able to go in the proper direction through the bottom holes and just straight out the top where it wants to go. So if you pull the pot off there and do that, then what you can do to compensate is just make a little room that way. Just go off to the side, drift off to the side, even way off to the side if you have to. You're still getting enough heat right on the bottom that it should work. And just the whole idea is just try to get the proper amount of oxygen to the fire so that it combusts. So that's the whole deal. Whatever you got to do to make it work, do that. Just keep in mind that air is one of the most important factors, and you don't get to fire without the oxygen. So anyway, anything you can do to get a fast flow of oxygen is going to help you out tremendously. This little pot should not have that much of an issue because there's definitely a little bit of room around the edges for that. So you should be able to get a good hot fire that doesn't smoke too much, right? Of course, with a gas fire, there should be hardly any smoke at all. But this is what you get this is the versatile thing that you can use in all weather conditions. So, I mentioned another pot design. I'm not going to take you through the entire construction of that, just the essential part. I got this other pot that I've already set up. I've made holes around the top. But we're going to do something different in this case, and that's going to make it compatible with our kit. I probably won't actually use this one because I screwed up and made this humongous hole on one side, and I don't like it. It just makes, for me, I do so many things that are messy, but there are certain things that, like having this big hole is just like, no, I don't want that. I don't want to be looking at that every day. So I'll just make a new one. Or I may adapt that one, because I think one of my methods in the last video is going to be, accommodate for that. It's going to add some ways to experiment with this whole thing, close off some holes and stuff like that. But I'm going to demonstrate with this one. And what we're going to do is, instead of putting a row of holes around the bottom, we're going to make a hole in the bottom. But we're not going to use it do a drill, because what I want to do is go right inside that inner ring right there. And almost all of these cans should have an inner ring. If you don't have it, don't make it hard on yourself. Just find with an inner ring, because it's going to give you a nice place to do this. So I'm going to put some gloves on, just in case knife slips or something. And I don't remember how hard this is. There it goes. There we go. Going to work it around. It's hard to get it to a really good circle, but you'll be able to by bending back little tabs until it becomes more circular, or you don't even have to worry about it, because it doesn't for no particular reason it has to be a circle. It could be a square for all it matters. goes there. Let's grab it like this. Okay, and you can imagine a step that I'll skip for the video, just taking the grinder and just going around that to get any burrs or anything, make it as neat as you want to make it. But now we have a completely different type, but with the same idea. We got the holes at the top because we want them to make sure we have a way for the air to escape at the top, and there's a way for the air to get in the bottom so that we can have a flow of air from the bottom to the top. But of course, if all you did was you just stuck it on the ground like that, you're not going to get any air into the bottom. So what we need to do is prop it up with some rocks. And I totally forgot to grab some rocks, so I'm going to do that right now. I got so many around here, it should be very easy to find something appropriate. So let's try these. Just do is prop them up like that. That one's too big. That one's going to be too big. Let me get this one right here. Down over there. Okay, let me flip them from the table. See how that works. Alright, so if you're thinking of just like a situation where you're just camping out and you're just trying to get a fire going with your hobo stove, totally doable situation. Get yourself a couple rocks and you can get your fire going. You might not do this in all situations when you're doing car camping, but rocks are pretty much always available, right? So you're able to use it in this circumstance like that. And another thing you can do, you can flip it upside down like that. So now you have air coming in the bottom and air coming out the top. And what happens when you have a smaller hole there, and this is exactly how I use it on the gasifier, is that this will concentrate the air right there. So, and in such a way that it speeds up the airflow coming through here and really sucks the air through this whole contraption to heat up and combust much more efficiently, which is what you want. But of course you still need a way for the air to escape. You can't just stick the pot right on top of there. So in this case we did exactly the same thing with the rocks. We can just sit them on the top lip like that. And of course you're not making a video, I imagine, so you could take some time to find some appropriate rocks, but even if you didn't, you can still sit it on there like that. You'll see lots of people doing this in backpacking videos, just kind of cradling their pots on there however they can, just dangling them off the edge like that, and you just do whatever works. And so it's a really good way for you to learn, outside of the, just like recipes for like construction recipes, how to adjust things using scientific principles, just general principles that will work in any situation and improve your intuition for how things work. So I totally have used this configuration a number of times for my hobo stove. So this design does work very, very well. And so we might as well just fire them up, both of these stoves, just so you can get an idea. And now, these little pieces right here, do not throw them away. I should have mentioned that before. They're going to be important parts of our kit, so always keep them around. But both the tops, if you cut off the bottom too, keep that too. We might have a whole bunch of these things we'll stick in our kit, and we use them in different ways by cutting out different ways to make simmer rings and stuff. That's going to be like in the last video of this particular series. So we could also do it, yeah, you could technically do this by putting it on the bottom and have sort of a top burner. I tried it, it doesn't work that well, but you feel free to try whatever you want. But what you can do to make this one work, I'll show you how to load this one, because it's pretty obvious how to load this one. You just stick a bunch of sticks in there, right? This one requires a little bit more thought. How do you keep stuff from falling out the bottom? Well, it's not that tough. All you got to do is just crisscross them. So once you've just done basically that, then nothing's going to fall through there until like the end of the process. So, and what you use these for in general is just give yourself something so you're not burning the ground or the table that you're using. So we'll just do that. We'll put some rocks on here, and like that. And we'll set it up like that. I need a better rock. Let's see, there's got to be one just right around here. Okay, I won't use it for, I'll just continue. So you got this crisscross, and then you just load them up with your sticks. Depending on where you light it from, you might choose to like stick your paper down there in the bottom. So I'll just wad up some paper, stick it on the bottom, and then in this case we're going to use, if I remember to bring them, yeah, there they are. In fact, I'm going to pull these papers out of here for now. One of those videos we were using Vaseline soaked balls. In this case we're going to use something that I like much better. These are paraffin soaked cotton balls. Paraffin being candle wax basically. And all you do is melt down some candle wax and you just dip them in there, and you can scrunch them up into a little ball. And then once you got your little ball, you're ready to camp. It's like a little candle now, but what you want to do is break it open to reveal some of the fluffy parts, and the fluffy parts will catch a flame really quick, and then the rest will burn like a candle. And they're especially good in survival type situations. Let me just do this. I'm going to get the paper out of the way, and I'm going to stick it on the bottom so that I can light it from the bottom. And then I'll stick my paper around there. It's more, usually consider it tinder, but in this case it's so. Our fireball there is more tinderous, as if that was a word. So we'll do that, and then stick some more sticks in there. So you can load the other one the same way and just light it from the bottom, just like I'm going to do for the next one, by loading it from the top, or loading it from the far bottom in the hole. However much time you want to spend making these into little tiny things, up to you. Decrease the amount of time you have to spend loading it. Oh, and by the way, in case you forgot, this is the type that I use. This is basically what my my chimney riser is on my gasifier stove. So all these little sticks, they should have been at the bottom, by the way. But it really depends how you want to light it. You can light it from the top, or you can light it from the bottom, or you can light it from both. If you light it from the top and you can get it going, especially if you use something that lights really easily, like lighter fluid. If you just want to use lighter fluid, if you got it available, why not use it? You don't have to test your survival skills for every meal. So we'll do that, and let's see, where's my lighter? Did I even bring my lighter, or is it in the camper? Yeah, here's mine right here. So same way, we could light it, and it would be the same deal if we were going to do, before I light it, I might as well show you. It would be the same deal. You could do the same thing if you wanted to flip it over and do it this way. Again, you could light it from the top, and in this case we can just light it right there. And I'm going to guess, since this is the more unusual configuration that you wouldn't have seen before, I think I'm going to actually go with this one and see how well it lights up this way. And I'm also going to mention, just before we get this going, sticks are kind of falling out. I'm also going to mention that you might see this design as familiar if you are having experience with charcoal chimney starters. Big version of this with a handle on it. Stick the charcoal in there, and it's a great way to get it lighted. It's basically this. It's the same thing, though usually it's like hollow on the bottom. It usually has some kind of mesh screen in there for you to yeah, it usually just has a mesh screen to get a lot of air in there. So that's definitely a different option. You could use this one in upside down configuration with sort of a screen on the bottom and use it as a chimney lighter. Just figure out whatever works for you and is most convenient. Convenience is going to be one thing that differently than if you're doing this as like a backpacker. He just has to go with whatever works. Yeah, I mean, you want to have convenience too. You got to have a, you know, it's going to be whatever fits in your kit and stuff like that. So you have those issues, just in slightly different ways. You just have a couple of other privileges, like having, let's say, let's see, where's my fireball go? There it goes. There it is. Okay, so let me just sort of prop this up a little bit. In fact, let me get this down there so you can see it a little better. Can I zoom? That looks like it's not letting me zoom. Okay, so I'm just going to light it up. It's already got a flame, and it should shoot up pretty quick. There it goes. Now, I don't want to block these holes up too much. Looks like I might have blocked them a little bit. So in this case, a thing that's happening that wouldn't be happening in this one is that you have this concentrator ring, which is doing two things. It's not only speeding up the air, but it also has a little bit of a reflection ring on the top that allows some of the heat to stay in this. Because the first thing you want to do is to really concentrate the heat into one area. So in some ways this has some advantages over this. Which one is going to work in a particular situation, you have to determine that by experiment. I haven't done enough experiments with hobo stoves, and definitely not this one, which is using this as a hobo stove in this configuration is a brand new thing to me. So you can see I have a nice little flame coming out of there. So we can start cooking just by putting some rocks on. Ow, it's hot. I touched the side. Oh, and this has this coating on here. I got a little bit of that coating on my finger. So this is a plastic coating, that's why it's a little bit yellow. So I just learned that by burning myself. So we can set that on there. It's if we had set this up this way, then we wouldn't have had this problem. We could have set it up and then loaded it from the top, and then it wouldn't be so rickety. That's a little bit better. But it's coming out just fine. And 3 stones. That was an idea I picked up from what's called a 3-tone stove. It's like one of the original, most basic ways to do a good stove like this, rather than just make a big open campfire. If you want to cook something, put 3 stones out, put your fire in the middle of it, and it'll be just like this can configuration, just there's no can. 3 stones, put the pot on top of it, and stuff in the middle. You can even like dig a little hole down under there, but it's just a really basic stone that a research organization called Approvecho, who invented the rocket stove idea, they encouraged the 3-tone stone thing for just a very primitive configuration. When they went to, I think they did their research in Africa, where they taught people how to make rocket stoves and other efficient stoves in order to help them do their outdoor cooking much more efficiently without wasting so much. And because, you know, they have to sometimes walk many miles in order to pick up their firewood in order to bring it back, and they do that every single day, and so they save so much time just by having more efficient ways to cook. Since you don't have to get all this firewood, you can just use twigs. So we can benefit from a lot of those same ideas. So you can see there's a little bit of smoke. I don't know if you can see it in the video. There's a little bit of smoke. It's not the most efficient thing in the world. That's what the thing about these hobo stoves is. but it still works pretty well. Let's see what happens if I pull that off. There's a little bit less smoke, but it's still pretty smoky. But there's less smoke because it's getting more oxygen now. If I were to have larger rocks, this would work even better. You could even put this thing in the middle of like a campfire configuration. Actually, this little rock is kind of in the way. I wonder if that's interfering with it. Yeah, it's working much better now. But it's still pretty smoky though. Oh, you know what a lot of that smoke is coming from? It's this coating is burning off. It has a bit of an odor to it. But the fire inside is going really well. It keeps the heat in there, the concentrator ring. Concentrates the fire right in the middle and reflects a lot more heat back into it. So that's going to work real well. Let's see what happens if I blow into the side there. You can't really see it well. Blowing air in the bottom gives it more oxygen and really makes it expand. You can probably even hear it now. It sounds like a campfire. So there we go. This is the configuration that I'm going to use, though I'm going to save this particular can to use for that experiment, and I'm going to cut a hole in this one at that point, and I'm going to cover up these holes. I'm going to make an optional thing, basically. I'm going to use a couple cans, cut them up into different ways, and I'm going to attempt to cover these holes and put a hole into this one. So it'll be useful like this. You can use like that, on top of the gasifier. And the other thing that one can do that I just discovered is you can use your Hobo Stove on top of your gasifier stove if you want. For instance, you need an extra 5 minutes and don't want to reload the whole thing with pellets. You can just throw some twigs in to the thing on the top. Yeah, so you'll basically have a stove on top of a stove. And you can use this as a chimney starter for charcoal, so that works real well. Also for by just putting it on top of your gasifier stove. You can use it as is, but I found that it works really well. Just load up the gasifier stove and then use it to heat up the charcoal that's in here. So there's all kinds of ways you can use this, and you'll be able to fit this right inside your gasifier for storage. Alright, so I guess now that you've seen this, you have an idea how this one works. I've explained just your basic configurations, like remembering that you can move it all around here, but it's a really pretty simple stove that's very versatile in lots of different situations. So now it's getting smoky, and again, totally good motivation for moving on to our gasifier so we don't have to deal with all of this mess. Alright, so I will see you in just a moment.